Welcome back, viewers, to the latest researches and news. Today we have 4 major reports from across the conflict zone. First of all, about Fano's division raids a regime encampment in East Gojam overnight. More than 41 regime personnel killed, including 5 ranked officers and commanders. Secondly, about the Raya front is being loaded on both sides simultaneously. Ethiopian National Defense Force is moving heavy weapons from North Wolo highlands toward Raya-Kobo. Tigray Defense Force is reinforcing Raya-Alamata. We explain what this buildup means. After that, about Ethiopian National Defense Force sources claim significant Tigray Defense Force losses on the Shirena front bodies reportedly found. We analyze this claim carefully. And in last, about Fano enters Vagotena in North Wolo. Ethiopian National Defense Force had already left. What the town's fall tells us about the Ethiopian National Defense Force's new strategy and why it is creating more problems than it solves. Let us begin with the most operationally precise battle result of the day, because the detail in this report reflects exactly how Fano's operations have evolved. In Imbise Sa Midi Woreda of East Gojam Zone Fano units, under the 74th Division of the Amhara Fano National Movement's 201st Corps, carried out a coordinated nighttime infiltration into regime positions in the Signal Jebeya and Dibo areas. The operation targeted an encampment occupied by a mixed force of regime personnel, regional defense force members, militia, and police. These are the layers of security that the Ethiopian government has been deploying together in Amhara. Federal soldiers alongside regional forces, alongside local militia, and police stacking different armed groups in the same positions. The 74th Division moved in during darkness. The assault was coordinated, meaning multiple elements attacking from planned angles simultaneously rather than a single directional push. This is the operational sophistication that Fano has been building over 3 years of conflict. The result, more than 41 regime personnel killed. Among them, at least 5 ranked officers and unit commanders. Those commander losses matter disproportionately to the raw casualty number. Killing 5 commanders in a single overnight operation disrupts leadership chains, creates confusion in surviving units, and delivers a psychological blow that numbers alone do not capture. Fano also captured a substantial cache of military equipment, weapons, ammunition, and logistical supplies from the encampment. As we have said before, every weapon captured from a regime position is a weapon that will now serve the resistance. On Fano's side, 1 fighter was killed and several others were wounded. We note this loss with the seriousness it deserves. The resistance acknowledges its fallen, it does not hide them. That fighter gave their life in this operation and should be recognized. This is how Fano fights. Nighttime, coordinated, targeted, and it is working. Now to the front that carries the highest risk of escalating into a large-scale engagement, Raya in North Wolo Zone. Reports from the area confirm that both sides are actively moving heavy military equipment into the same corridor at the same time. On the Ethiopian National Defense Force side, regime forces have been redeploying troops and transporting heavy weapons from multiple locations, including the highlands of North Wolo Zone toward Raya-Kobo-Alamata. This is the Ethiopian National Defense Forces side of the border corridor, where the A2 highway runs and where the regime's defensive concentrations have been building. On the Tigray Defense Force side, additional personnel and heavy military equipment have been deployed into Raya-Alamata Woreda on the Tigray side of the same border zone. Raya-Alamata and Raya-Kobo sit on opposite sides of the Tigray-Amhara administrative boundary. What is being assembled is effectively a face to face concentration of armed forces with the contested Raya territory between them. Let us explain why Raya is so important that both sides are willing to risk escalation to control it. Raya is not just territory, it is the gateway. Historically, Raya has been disputed between Tigray and Amhara, with communities on both sides claiming it. But beyond the political dispute, Raya controls the approaches to the A2 highway, the road that runs from the Tigray border through Woldia and Kobo toward Dessie and ultimately toward Addis Ababa. Whoever controls the terrain around Raya controls the movement of forces and supplies along the most strategically important road in northern Ethiopia. The Ethiopian National Defense Force is reinforcing Raya-Kobo to defend that road and that corridor. Tigray Defense Force is reinforcing Raya-Alamata to press that corridor from the Tigray side. The two buildups are mirrors of each other, and the space between them is shrinking. Residents in Tigray Defense Force controlled areas of the Raya territory, as well as in Kobo City and the Raya-Kobo-Alamata, are expressing serious concern. They see what is arriving on both sides: trucks carrying heavy equipment, troop movements at night, the kinds of preparations that precede battle, not peace. When civilians who live between two armies start worrying about renewed large-scale fighting, they are usually right. The rear front is not a warning sign of coming escalation. It is the escalation, being assembled piece by piece. Now to a claim from the Ethiopian National Defense Force side that we must cover honestly and analyze carefully. Ethiopian National Defense Force affiliated sources are reporting that Tigray Defense Force suffered significant losses on the Shirina front. Specifically, the claim is that more than a dozen bodies of Tigray fighters were found in the Tekeze River and near refugee camps in the area. This claim is being presented as evidence that Tigray Defense Force suffered heavy casualties in the Shirena engagement, countering the narrative of Tigray Defense Force's successful defense and offensive strikes. We present this claim clearly and then we analyze it. At the time of this report, neither the Tigray People Liberation Front political administration nor Tigray Defense Force has issued any statement responding to or addressing this specific claim. The silence is notable. But silence alone does not confirm the claim. Here is what makes this claim difficult to assess at this stage. The Tekeze River runs along a section of the Tigray-Amhara border in the broader area where fighting occurred. Bodies in a river near a conflict zone can result from many things: battle casualties, drowning during river crossings, or bodies moved by current from a distant location. Without knowing the exact location, the timing, and the circumstances, it is not possible to draw firm conclusions about what the presence of bodies in the Tekeze tells us about Tigray Defense Force's losses. The refugee camp claim adds another complicating layer. Refugee camps in border areas often contain civilians who have fled fighting, and the presence of bodies near a camp does not automatically mean those individuals were fighters. We are not dismissing the Ethiopian National Defense Force claim. We are applying the same standard we apply to all claims in this conflict. We tell you what is being said. We tell you what cannot yet be confirmed. And we tell you what would be needed to verify it. What is independently confirmed from the Shirena front: Tigray Defense Force conducted operations. Ethiopian National Defense Force was engaged. Gondar Hospital received a surge of wounded Ethiopian National Defense Force personnel, and large numbers of Ethiopian National Defense Force soldiers were captured and confirmed on video from multiple independent sources. Those facts came from independently corroborated evidence. The Ethiopian National Defense Force casualty claim about Tigray Defense Force losses comes from one side, without independent corroboration, and has not been addressed by the other side. We will continue monitoring for any additional information. And now to a development in North Wolo that represents the latest chapter in a pattern we have been tracking for weeks. Vagotena, a town in Dilanta Woreda of North Wolo, has come under Fano control. Images shared by Fano showed their fighters inside the town. Fano supporters described it as a capture. But here is the detail that matters. Ethiopian National Defense Force units had already left Vagotena before Fano arrived. So was it captured in combat? Or was it forcated and then entered? The honest answer, based on available reporting, is the latter. Ethiopian National Defense Force carried out what military analysts are describing as a planned redeployment, a deliberate withdrawal from an isolated position rather than a defeat in direct fighting. We have reported on this Ethiopian National Defense Force strategy in previous videos. The federal military is pulling forces from isolated, hard to defend rural positions and concentrating them along major highways and key supply routes. The objective is to reduce the risk of encirclement, of having small units surrounded and destroyed by Fano in terrain far from reinforcement. Instead, the Ethiopian National Defense Force is building a defensive chain around the urban centers and roads it can realistically hold. By this logic, leaving Vagotena was a rational military decision. The town is not on a major highway. Holding it would require a permanent garrison that could be surrounded. So the Ethiopian National Defense Force left. But here is the cost of that strategy that the Ethiopian National Defense Force's planning does not fully account for. Every town the Ethiopian National Defense Force vacates becomes Fano territory. Not theoretically, actually. Fano moves in, establishes presence, uses it for logistics, for rest, for community engagement. The resistance grows its administrative and operational footprint with every Ethiopian National Defense Force withdrawal. Vagotena follows Daunt, Leme, Robit, Domaseko, Kalela, and others in North and South Wolo, all towns that Ethiopian National Defense Force withdrew from and Fano entered. The pattern is now large enough to constitute a strategic reality. The Ethiopian federal military is no longer trying to hold Amhara. It is trying to hold the arteries running through Amhara. And those arteries are now being compressed from multiple directions simultaneously by Fano from the rural areas and by Tigray Defense Force from the northern Raya front. The Ethiopian National Defense Force's strategy of concentrating along highways is logical in isolation. In the context of what Fano and Tigray Defense Force are doing simultaneously, it is a defensive posture that is being tightened around it from every side. Like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an update.